I never thought refusing to join a homeowners association could cost me everything. But that was before I met her. The woman the entire neighborhood whispered about. The self-proclaimed queen of the block HOA Karen. She wasn't officially in charge of anything, but somehow everyone followed her lead. She demanded I sign the papers, join her HOA, and keep the neighborhood in order. I politely declined. I had no interest in paying monthly fees for someone to tell me what color I could paint my mailbox. That's when everything changed. At first, it was small. Lawn complaints, passive-aggressive notes, strange glares from neighbors who once waved hello. I brushed it off until things escalated. I'd find my trash cans knocked over, my car keyed. One night, someone even let the air out of all my tires. Still, I didn't back down. Then, the unthinkable happened. I came home late one evening to find flames licking the sky. My house, my home, was engulfed. Fire trucks were already there, but it was too late. Everything I owned, gone. The cause? Accidental, they said. At first, but I knew better, and I had proof. What HOA Karen didn't know, what no one in the neighborhood knew, was who I really am. Beneath the quiet exterior, I'm not just another homeowner. I'm a federal judge, a feared one, and I don't take injustice lightly. She thought I was powerless, that I'd be too scared to fight back. She had no idea who she was messing with. So, when I walked into that courtroom, not as a victim, but as the one holding the gavel, her face said it all. And that's when the real story began. Karen had always acted like the HOA was her personal kingdom, even though it wasn't officially registered. She gathered a few neighbors who followed her around like lost puppies and created her own little council. They handed out fake violation notices, fined people for unapproved decorations, and even tried to control who could move in. I kept my distance. I didn't need to play by their made-up rules. My home was legally outside the HOA boundary, and I had no obligation to join. But Karen saw that as a personal challenge. Over time, I noticed things started getting strange. Packages vanished from my porch. A neighbor quietly warned me that Karen was spreading rumors about me, calling me a troublemaker and a threat to the community. Still, I held my ground. I dealt with far worse in courtrooms than petty suburban politics. Then came the anonymous letters. Folded notes shoved under my door, all saying the same thing. Join the HOA or pay the price. I reported it, of course, but without solid proof, nothing could be done. I installed cameras, but somehow they were always tampered with or mysteriously turned off when something happened. The fire? That was no accident. I'd been collecting evidence for weeks. A few photos here, a video clip there, small but enough to raise eyebrows. And when the fire marshal whispered to me that someone had been seen near my home just minutes before the blaze, someone matching a certain description, I knew it was time to act. What Karen didn't realize was that I'd been working on a case like this before, only this time it was personal. I wasn't just preparing a legal response. I was preparing a reckoning. And trust me, it was only just beginning. The days after the fire were a blur: police reports, insurance calls, endless questions. I stayed in a hotel a few miles away while investigators did their work. Karen, of course, acted heartbroken. She even left a card at the front desk of the hotel, signed with a fake smiley face and a message that read, "So sorry for your loss. Let us know when you're ready to join the HOA." It wasn't just passive-aggressive. It was a message warning, and it only fueled my determination. Behind the scenes, I started pulling strings. I reached out to a few contacts in law enforcement and had a quiet look into Karen's past. Nothing major on paper, but something felt off. Multiple complaints from former neighbors to restraining orders, both dismissed, but a pattern was forming. She'd done this before, just never to someone who knew how to fight back. Meanwhile, I started noticing others in the neighborhood acting strange. A few neighbors who had once chatted casually now avoided me. One even crossed the street when I walked by, but not everyone turned their backs. It's a quiet older man named Mr. Hernandez, who lived 2 houses down, pulled me aside one evening. He told me Karen had been threatening others to forcing them into her fake HOA with intimidation, fees, and made-up bylaws. He wasn't the only one. In the span of a week, 3 more residents came forward. One of them had surveillance footage from a month earlier, grainy, but clear enough. It showed Karen and one of her so-called board members standing near my property late at night, holding what looked like a gas can. It wasn't solid proof yet. It was close. The walls were closing in on her. She just didn't know it yet. It all came to a head one stormy night. I'd spent the past few weeks quietly building my case. I had the fire report, the video footage, witness statements, even records showing Karen had falsified HOA documents to make it look like my home was under her jurisdiction. Every piece added weight. But I wasn't just looking for criminal charges, was setting the stage for something bigger. I wanted this exposed publicly, legally, and permanently. But before I could make my move, Karen made hers. Around midnight, I got a call from Mr. Hernandez. His voice was shaking. "They're outside. I think they're planning something." I rushed over in my car and parked down the street, watching from the shadows. And there she was, Karen, wearing a long coat, pacing in front of what remained of my burned home. She was talking on the phone, angrily waving her arms like she'd lost control. A few others stood nearby, 2 of her board members. One of them was carrying a bag that looked oddly heavy for a late-night stroll. I hit record on my phone. What I caught next made my stomach turn. Karen pulled a set of papers from her coat, lit a lighter, and began burning them right there on my property. Probably trying to destroy fake violation letters or something else that could connect her to the fire. She thought the rain would wash it all away, but she didn't know. I was watching. Every second of that footage brought me closer to the moment I'd been waiting for. The moment where everything she'd built, every lie, every threat, every fake HOA fine would fall apart. And just when she thought no one was looking, the blue and red lights lit up the street. The flashing lights sent Karen into a panic. She tried to act calm, stuffing the half-burned papers back into her coat, but the damage was already done. Officers stepped out, shining their flashlights on the group. One of them asked what they were doing out so late. Karen gave a rehearsed smile and said they were just checking on the property after the fire, as if that made any sense at all. But the tension in her voice betrayed her. I stayed out of sight, still recording, letting them dig their own hole. Just when I thought things couldn't get more twisted, one of the officers turned and looked directly at me. "Judge," he called. "Out. You might want to come over here." That's when Karen's expression cracked. Her eyes widened like she'd seen a ghost. She hadn't known I was back, or that I'd been working with local authorities the entire time. But then came the twist I didn't see coming. One of Karen's board members, a woman named Sheila, stepped forward. She looked shaken, almost guilty. She turned to the officer and said, "I didn't know she was going to go this far. I thought it was just about keeping the neighborhood in line." Karen spun toward her, furious. "What are you doing?" she hissed. Sheila looked at me, then back at the cops. "She told us to scare him, to push him out. But the fire? That wasn't part of the plan." She crossed the line. The moment turned electric. Karen's face drained of color. For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. The story I thought I was in, me versus Karen, suddenly shifted. There were others involved. People who were willing to turn on her People with secrets of their own, and they were all about to come out. Sheila's confession cracked everything open. The officers separated the group and started asking questions. Karen was pacing, muttering to herself, trying to spin a new story. But the weight of the evidence was too much. Between the footage, the burned documents, and now a witness turning on her, her tight little kingdom was crumbling right there on my lawn. I stepped forward, calm but firm. I introduced myself properly, not just as the homeowner, but as judge. Marshal? That title hit hard. One of the officers gave a small nod. He knew exactly who I was. Karen's eyes flicked back and forth, like she was calculating her next move. But there was nothing left to calculate. Her game was over. The police arrested her on the spot for attempted fraud, trespassing, and obstruction of an ongoing investigation. But just as I was starting to feel closure settling in, Sheila pulled me aside. "There's something else," she whispered. Karen kept a storage unit. Said it was full of HOA records, but she wouldn't let anyone see it. That one detail flipped everything again. With help from the authorities, we got access to the unit the next morning. Inside were boxes of forged documents, fake HOA fines, fabricated property violation notices, even altered fire inspection reports from past neighborhoods she'd lived in. Karen had been running a long con, targeting homeowners who lived just outside HOA lines, tricking them into paying fees and obeying rules that weren't real. She wasn't just a power-hungry neighbor. She was a serial fraud. The neighborhood finally saw her for what she was. Charges were filed, and the investigation went deeper than anyone imagined. I got justice. But more importantly, I stopped her before she moved on to her next target. Or so I thought. In the weeks that followed, things slowly began to return to normal, or as close to normal as possible, after everything that had happened. Karen was officially charged with multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and harassment. Her so-called HOA was dissolved, and the fake bylaws she had been forcing on neighbors were exposed as complete fabrications. Several people she had bullied came forward, relieved that someone had finally stood up to her. The storage unit turned out to be the key. It linked her to similar incidents in 3 other neighborhoods, all with the same pattern: unregistered HOAs, threats, fake fines, and sudden moves when people pushed back. She'd been running this scheme for years, and no one had caught her. Until now, Mr. Hernandez and a few others formed a real community watch, to control people, but to protect each other. I helped guide them, not as a judge, but just as a neighbor who'd seen how easily things could spiral when no one speaks up. The empty lot where my home once stood became a reminder of what I lost, but also what I stood for. I decided not to rebuild right away. Instead, I spent time traveling, reflecting. Sometimes the law feels like a distant, cold thing, but this time it hit close. This time it was personal. And it reminded me why I do what I do. The final twist. Karen tried to claim she was the victim, said she was just protecting the neighborhood. But the evidence and the truth spoke louder than any of her lies ever could. So if there's one thing I'll leave you with, it's this: bullies don't always come with fists. Sometimes they wear fake titles and carry clipboards. But when you stand your ground the right way, they fall just the same.